in my view, the most powerful man in America, U.S. Senator from Virginia, Mark Warner. Senator, great to have you with us.
John, that's quite a lead-in. I don't know if I can meet that title, but it's great to be on your show.
Well, it's good to have you on, sir. And see, you are the guy. You are the swing guy in there that's going to get everything done. I spent so much time with you when you were working with Saxby Chambliss with the infamous Gang of Six, and you just couldn't get anything done. But now you are the guy. Let's go to ISIS. Man, burning people alive. What's the plan?
Yeah. Barbaric, even by terrorist standards. This is a group that is a threat to the region, that is a threat to Europe, that is a threat ultimately to our country. And I think I'm glad the president is going to lay out his definition of the AUMF on Wednesday, which would be the authorization of use of military force. I want to see what he's got to say, but we need to, I believe, give him the tools to wage this battle. The only thing that came out of the Barbaric Act, particularly of burning of the Jordanian pilot, was you now seeing Jordan step up dramatically more. The UAE, the Emirates, have restarted their fighter pilots as well. But this is a group that needs to be completely eliminated.
So what's the approach? I mean, you're not going to do it by sending in 500 advisors. There's not a lot of appetite right now for average Americans to get involved in another protracted Middle East conflict. What do we do?
Well, I think you're going to need, I for one would hope this authorization of military force would include all options on the table. Mm-hmm. And so that if, let's face it, there is already a distinction. We have, in effect, troops on the ground already in Iraq in advisor role. Now, again, where that line between advisor and massive ground troops is a distinction that I'll be anxious to see what their language would be used. But I want to see the other Sunni states in the region be able to put their troops into fighting position. Clearly, you've got the Kurdish Peshmerga, who are good fighters. They need some additional arms. So my hope would be is that we would see Arab states in the region. I've said all along, this is a threat to civilization, both in that region and across the world. And we need to see, particularly those folks most affected, the other Sunni Arabs, step up against this group.
Without a doubt. So it sounds like what you're saying, Senator, you're going to wait to hear what the president has to say, and you think all options right now should be
right. I think that I will probably be in favor of a broader AUMF than what the president may propose.
Right.
But again, I think, as you said, the American public is not interested in another massive intervention that is going to create terrorists. But you've got to give the military commanders the tools they need to try to be able to destroy this force. If we see the other Arab states step up, as I hope they will.
All right, Senator, let's get to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu coming to Washington to address a joint session of Congress. As you know, the administration very upset with the speaker, think he overstepped the bounds in inviting him in. What say you?
I think it was a dreadful mistake of the speaker. I think he has taken something which has been a broad bipartisan support for the state of Israel. I recently voted to reimpose sanctions if the president doesn't meet his own deadline with Iran by the end of March. I think Netanyahu is making a mistake coming 2 weeks before his own elections. It does not. It smacks of Israeli domestic politics, which shouldn't be. The United States shouldn't be playing a role in. Now, we'll see if this comes off. I got to believe there's going to have to be some face saving, but I think this has created, I think, it was a real mistake of the speaker to invite Netanyahu, and I think it was even more a mistake of Netanyahu to accept.
Are there some that aren't going to show up?
I don't know. I think everyone is hoping there may be some graceful way out. No one has said that yet. I'm going to keep my powder dry to see what happens. But this is just not the way American diplomacy should be led. You can agree or disagree with Obama. That's every American's right. But you don't do this kind of breach of what has been appropriate protocol. Could you imagine what would happen if Nancy Pelosi had invited someone and not notified President Bush? People would be howling. And again, what I'm so disappointed in is that folks within the Israeli government should have said, "Hey, this could damage long-term relations," and it's so blatantly an effort by Netanyahu to try to curry favor with his own electorate. He's got a tough election coming up at the end of March, and I'm really disappointed.
Well, I have to say, Senator Warner, you asked a good question, because had Nancy Pelosi done that when she was Speaker, I, for one, would have gone absolutely crazy.
You would have gone, John. I
would have gone ballistic.
John,
You're right.
I can imagine what you would have said.
I mean,
my gosh.
I'd have gone nuts.
It would have been across the spectrum. People would have said, "This is outrageous."
I would have gone crazy. I mean, that's look, just that argument now makes me consider my position on it. So that's why you're very effective. Okay, let's get to Keystone Pipeline. You've been an advocate of that. It's passed. President Obama says he's going to veto it. Any chance of getting this veto overridden?
Again, you got to try to stay optimistic in this job. The president has said he's going to wait for the final reviews to be done. After 6 years, these reviews should be done.
Right.
The case in Nebraska, the Supreme Court there didn't stay. I think, John, on this is a case where both sides have overstated their cases.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think this is a huge jobs bill. At the end of the day, it's going to be, 30 or 50 permanent jobs. There will be construction jobs during the period. I don't think this is going to radically change the environmental footprint. Canada's exploiting this oil already. This is a pipeline. It should not have taken 6 years to get approval. And I think it would be best for all concerned if it moves forward. Let's face it, oil at $50 a barrel, the underlying finances on this may not fully work. But there are places that have battles. This is not one I think where either side should have picked. I recall earlier on in the discussion, what I'd urged was, let's do the pipeline, but also let's do a major energy conservation bill at the same time. You could add a win-win. But that was back in the days when I was hoping for more bipartisan rationalness.
All right, staying with pipelines, let's get to Virginia. Mountain Valley Pipeline could bring a lot of manufacturing to Virginia. I had Governor Terry McAuliffe on our show on Wednesday. He's in favor of it. I know you've also are open to the idea. What do you think of getting this pipeline through Virginia that manufacturing companies could come in and tap into it on the way?
Well, listen, when we're talking about whether it's oil or gas, it has to be transported some way. And as we saw, almost a year ago with the train derailment in Lynchburg, that we dodged a bullet, so to speak, there when the train fell into the river rather than the city. You got to find a way to transport these fuels. I do think I would hope on there's 3 pipelines proposed, 2 that'll probably get built. I do think we need to be sensitive to property owners. I do think if there are routes that would be less disruptive, if there's already existing right-of-way, I think the property owners ought to have their day in court, and that's what we're looking forward to. But you can't say we're going to go ahead and I've been supportive of fracking and other things, and then say we can't transport it to market.
Right.
If you're going to, mine and drill, you've got to get it to market.
Right.
And that's the same where what I said, in terms of drilling off the coast of Virginia, I'm for that, as long as Virginia gets a share of the royalties. I just don't think, that we should be treated differently than the Gulf states, which get a share of the royalties. We ought to get a share of those royalties as well if we're going to take advantage of seeing what's off the coast of Virginia.
Absolutely. Senator, the Senate is currently taking up the president's decision not to deport a certain class of illegal immigrants through the DACA program by blocking funding of the DHS budget. None of the Democrats so far have broken with the president on this. Do you think there's at least some validity to the fact that even though these people were not 16 when they came to the U.S., they did enter the country illegally, often with the assistance of their mom and dad? What do we tell the millions of people who have been waiting in line
John,
lawfully?
This is one where I think it's not only the Democrats, there's been a couple of Republicans who've sided with us. I think it is bad policy, bad politics, and an extraordinarily bad symbol when you've got the same crowd in the Republican Party who led the efforts to shut down the government, who are saying we're going to hold, particularly at this moment of time, hold hostage the Department of Homeland funding if they don't get what they want. I think it's irresponsible beyond belief, with the threats of ISIL, with the potential of 30,000 people during furlough, with you see the kind of snowstorms and other disasters that FEMA has to respond to. The Republicans control at this point. They want to bring up immigration, bring it up, fine. But don't hold hostage the Department of Homeland Security and threaten to shut down that department if they don't get what they want. They control the agenda. There's nothing that says they can't go ahead, because everybody, both the Democrats and the Republicans, agreed on the funding amount. You and I have talked both as kind of former business guys. You start and stop funding. You cost the taxpayers money. Pass that Department of Homeland Security bill, then bring up immigration right away. Let's debate it. But this kind of if we don't get what we want, we're going to shut down government, particularly the Department of Homeland Security. I think will end up being a disaster for those advocates, and it's the very same people who led to the shutdown a year and a half ago.
So basically, what you're saying is,
I frankly think reasonable heads on the Republican side will say that this is not the American public, with the threat of ISIL, with the potential threats to FEMA. With this also cuts back on any kind of grants to fire departments. I think they are going to not allow the shutdown crowd to have their way. I think they're going to demand, and I think you're already starting to see Republican members say, "Hey, we ought to go ahead and pass the Homeland Security funding that should have been passed in December." And then you want to come back and debate immigration. Let's have at it.
All right, Senator, we're almost out of time, Senator Warner. Final question. Another scandal in Wall Street, HBSC Bank funneling, basically hiding billions of dollars with criminals and everything else. They get a fine. The authorities dragging their feet on it. I mean, Beth Warren is right. I mean, we have to do something, because it's the little guy on Main Street sees what's going on, and they're like, okay, they're going to get a fine that is actually under what the profit they made. So
Amen.
Where do you stop the outrage?
Here's what there are a group of us looking. I think in terms of the financial regs, Dodd-Frank, we need to go back and look at how we can help the community-based banks and smaller banks who didn't create the problem. But boy, oh boy, you take these top 5 or 6 institutions, they can't keep off the front page, and we need to pursue. It ought to be more than fine. There need to be actions taken. We set up what's called the living wills, that could chop off parts of these institutions if they are not done in an orderly way. I think some of those tools need to be used. But John, I got to run. But thank you for that last question.
Thanks for being with us
on the banking committee that I want to look more into.
All right. Thanks, sir. Thank you so much. Beth Warren on this issue is 100% right. Senator Warren serving on the banking committee. I mean, just giving these people a fine when they're laundering billions of dollars from criminals, evading U.S. and United Kingdom taxes. It's just outrageous. And we do nothing about it. We hit them with a fine that's, think about this, they get a fine that is under the profit they made for the crime.